Hey everybody, this is Stevie J from AngryMarks.com trying something a little different this week for the Ultimate Fighter Season 16 Week 12 recap. Let's start off with the first fight, and that was John Manley versus Colton Smith, both from Team Nelson. Well, actually, before that fight, we had a little bit of a revolt led by Joey Rivera, who wanted to tell Roy Nelson that they hadn't learned anything and they thought he was a terrible coach. To which he responded, I thought everybody who applied for Ultimate Fighter had to be men, have the right to vote, be able to drink, do man stuff. And he said he wasn't going to be a cheerleader for their corner and rah rah for them if that's what they wanted. And whether or not you think he was a good coach, he does kind of have a point. But he wasn't a good coach. Anyway, Nelson's two fighters went the full 3 rounds here. And I'd say that Manley lost every round. If you wanted to give him the third because Smith was on his bicycle a little bit trying to avoid him, I'd understand. But whenever they'd clinch up, Smith would work for a takedown and he'd get it, and he'd maul Manley on the ground. Manley did get in a couple of jabs on the feet that marked up his face a little bit, but he never won any striking or knocked him down or was any way getting a submission on the ground. Smith just totally dominated this fight. He got a unanimous decision. I don't know if it was 30-27 or 29-28, but either way, the judges all saw it his way. Next up was the two-team Carwin fighters, Mike Ricci and Neil Magny. And the first fight took us about 45 minutes into the show, so you knew this one wasn't getting out of the first round. And it didn't, because Ricci cracked him with a left hand at 1:54 left in the first and jumped on top of him. He was in full guard for a little bit. Magny started to wall walk, and that turned out to be a mistake because it was one of the most devastating elbows I've seen in a while. Mike Ricci just threw it like a left hook and knocked Magny out. I mean, he got back up, but he didn't know where he was. The doctor was asking him if he knew where he was and if he could remember anything. So the winner by knockout is Mike Ricci. That means our finals are Colton Smith and Mike Ricci for the Ultimate Fighter Season 16 finale next Saturday night. And of course, there will also be a fight with Roy Nelson, not facing Shane Carwin, because as Dana White admits in the wrap-up of the show, he blew out his knee again. So instead, from the same season of Ultimate Fighter that Carwin won, he'll be facing Matt Meathead Mitrione. And in Dana's words, these two will stand toe-to-toe, they will bang, and somebody will get knocked out. I think there's a pretty good possibility of that. Anyway, I'm going to give you a few notes on Bellator as long as I'm here. This was kind of a nothing show, and it wasn't really their fault. There was a fight that got scratched. We'll get into that in a minute. First fight was actually the best fight of the night, and it's a shame because it was less than a minute. That was Jessica Evil Eye versus Zoila Gurgel, and she got the Evil Eye all right because 4 seconds into the fight, Gurgel was cracked with a right hand, and from there, Eye just took over, was working for the submission on the feet. Gurgel passed out on her feet. So the winner by technical submission just 58 seconds into the fight is Jessica Evil Eye. Our second fight of the night was Anthony Leone versus Zach Funsize Makovsky. And some of you may remember that Makovsky is the former Bellator Bantamweight champion, but he didn't fight like a champion in this fight. Leone looked bigger and outmuscled him and outclassed him and took him down and controlled him. And really, I didn't see any point Makovsky was winning this fight. Although the judges made it a split decision. 2 of them saw it for Leone, 29-28, and 1 saw it for Makovsky by the same score, but at least the right man won. Then we learned that Rad Martinez and Shabalat Shamalayev got scratched because Shamalayev has food poisoning, so that fight will now take place next Friday on the season finale for Bellator Season 7. And we move on to Daryl Horker versus Chris Ligori, which was an odd choice for a main event for the evening, but what could you do? Horker was dominant in this fight. I mean, the first round was a 10-8. He just battered Ligori. In the second round, he hit him at about 340 with a left, and there was just no way that the fight should have continued after that because Ligori couldn't even stand up straight. He was wobbling on his feet. And Jimmy Smith was trying to justify this by saying that the referee was Rich Franklin's brother. And to me, that is the exact opposite of a justification because if your brother's with a fighter, you should know how dangerous it is to let somebody that's concussed and has a brain injury continue fighting when they have no business and can't defend themselves. But to Ligore's credit, he did get some takedowns in the third round, but that wasn't enough to win him the fight, and he got battered so badly in the first 2 rounds, I wouldn't have minded if it had been stopped between the second and the third. So the winner by unanimous 29-28 decision was Daryl Horker. And that was it for Bellator 83, and that's it for this recap. I'm Stevie J.